In November 2021, former TSM player Doublelift accused the organization's owner Reginald of harassing and abusing its members. After a war of words between the two, we didn't hear much until last week when news broke that Riot Games and TSM were launching their own separate investigations into the allegations. We're going to be discussing the allegations against Reginald and the implications of these investigations for both him and one of the world's biggest esports organizations. Now, before I dive into this video, I just wanted to let you know that we published our latest episode of our newest show, Every Second Counts, presented by Cisco. In this episode, we go deep on the underdog story of EDG besting Damwon Gaming in the most recent League of Legends Worlds Finals. Click the link in the description below to check out the video. Alright, before we dive too deeply into the investigations, it's important to quickly cover the reason they're happening now. Doublelift's accusations. Doublelift has had a long and well-documented history with Regi, and large parts of it have not exactly been harmonious. Between 2015 and 2021, Doublelift joined and left TSM on multiple occasions, first as a player for their League of Legends team, and then later as a streamer for them. Doublelift's final season as a TSM player finished with a disastrous 0-6 appearance at Worlds, after which he left the team and retired. He cited a number of personal reasons for this, including winning Worlds being unrealistic and that simply making it out of groups was an unfulfilling goal for him. Some people were surprised by his departure, especially because TSM were bringing in veteran Chinese support Sorda at that time. But in November 2021, while still streaming under the TSM banner, Doublelift slammed Regi and TSM on stream and shed some light on what really went down.
Honestly, I fucking hate TSM mostly because of Andy. I actually remember this now. Yeah, Sword Art called me afterwards and said, "I'm coming to TSM. Are you sure?" He still wanted to play with me, and then I called Andy and told him, yeah, Sword Art still wants to play with me, and I would love to, continue to play for the org. And Andy literally said no because he's got too much of an ego.
Reginald hit back with a Reddit post in which he disputed Doublelift's version of events and said that he assumed Doublelift was, quote, upset because we weren't interested in working with him. Now, this was the point where it went from a public spat about a player leaving a team to something far more serious. The next day, Doublelift leveled some pretty disturbing allegations against his former boss.
People don't like working with him. It's funny that he has this holier-than-thou attitude about it, because he's like a bully who gets away with being a bad person because he's powerful, because people are afraid to stand up to him. And that's what I'm sick of. That when I was talking to my friends last night on Discord, that's what I realized, is that I'm sick of somebody who's basically just a bully getting away with it because it's in everyone's best interest to not get in his way.
There have been rumours about Regi's behaviour over the years, but nothing quite as stark as this, especially because it was coming from perhaps the single most famous LCS player of all time, and one who had seen many iterations of TSM come and go over the years. There were those who backed up what Doublelift was saying, but also former players who either came to Regi's defense or at the very least tried to defuse the situation surrounding him, much to Doublelift's shock. Even Cloud9's owner, Jack Etienne, played down Regi's management style as brash and blunt during the time that he worked with him. So there was a massive uproar about this, and then everything seemed to die down until last week. That's when Wired shared an article in which Riot Games told them via email that, quote, "We are aware of the allegations made about the CEO/owner of TSM. As the league operator, we have engaged the law firm of O'Melveny and Myers LLP to conduct an independent investigation into claims of misconduct made against the leader of this team in accordance with standard league process." Wired also spoke to a number of TSM employees, one of whom alleges they were subject to mental abuse by Regi. Other individuals told them of being dominated by a culture of fear at TSM, of being called stupid or worthless by Regi, or being called by him after work hours to be screamed at. One of Wired's sources alleged that Regi would make an employee cry at least every other week. This echoed what Doublelift said when we first covered this story back in November. In fact, Doublelift said that Regi's verbal abuse of players was enough to trigger mental breakdowns in some of them.
He made so many players cry I don't want to name them actually because I feel like it's not my story to tell. So I would just say that he made a lot of players cry. You would be very fucking surprised at how many of maybe your favorite familiar faces in LCS legit mental breakdown because of how badly they were getting berated, how badly they were just getting verbally assaulted.
Now, when Doublelift raised these accusations of mental abuse against Regi, we didn't hear a reply from him, but this time we did when he responded to Wired over email. He said he has, quote, exceedingly high expectations for myself, and I share those same high expectations with everyone I work with. I have zero tolerance for underperformance. I am intense, passionate, driven, and relentless in the pursuit of winning. It's my nature. I set an extremely high bar, and when I feel that someone is not delivering, I directly and bluntly share that feedback. I know I need to work on my delivery, and I am working to improve the way I communicate with my team and those around me. I support and am fully cooperating with the independent investigations that are already underway and will gladly embrace any recommendations from the investigators. For some people like Cadrel though, these admissions were too little too late.
Had to work on his delivery. Yeah, I don't know. I don't like that. I know I need to work on my delivery. If 10 years ago he was flaming Dyrus and now he's doing the same thing still and he's saying that 10 years later he needs to work on his delivery. Yeah, I don't buy that. I don't buy that shit, personally.
A TSM spokesperson also told Wired that they've launched an internal investigation involving an independent subcommittee with the assistance of outside legal counsel and an independent investigator. They added that Regi has withdrawn himself from anything regarding the scope, nature, and conclusions of the investigation. So, we have two investigations at play here. The TSM one has already been mocked on social media, with some people in the community questioning just how accountable the org can really hold its owner. Now, the presumption here is that any real repercussions will come from Riot's investigation and the legal team they've hired to help them with this. But is that fair to assume? Riot are saying their investigation began when Doublelift made his public remarks back in November, but there have been rumours about this sort of stuff going on at TSM for years. And it wasn't just behind closed doors. In our last video, we showed examples of videos that have been public for a long time. One involved former TSM top laner Dyrus being badgered by Regi until he finally exploded.
Why are you being so rude?
I'm playing a game, dude. Leave me
Okay, why
alone.
are you being so rude then?
Leave me
That does not
alone.
justify you being rude.
Alright, I'm sorry for being rude then.
Stop being a little fucking brat.
You're still f***ing going
Stop
on.
being a little brat.
I said f***ing sorry!
Walk into this one more time. I said sorry! How hard is it to f***ing accept being a little fucking brat?
Another example was former TSM support X-Special being brought to tears after a heated post-game exchange with Regi.
Like, you're the best at what you do at your sport. That's why you went to all subject support. It's really obvious. It's really obvious, but people need to do what they're really good at. And my mechanics aren't that good. I'm really good at shot calling, and that's what I specialize in. And when someone tells me like their judgment is better than mine in game, I get really frustrated. I can't play well because that's what I'm spending most of my time.
Perhaps the most famous case, with over 1 million views, is another dispute between Regi and X-Special, as Regi argues that Wild Turtle, who is sitting next to him, was the main reason for a recent loss.
The biggest factor was Turtle.
Okay.
And you're arguing with me.
Alright, my bad.
No, for no reason, you're arguing with me and arguing. It's f***ing annoying. And you've always been doing this, and it's really getting annoying.
Okay.
And lately you've been doing it, it's so f***ing annoying.
Now, some of these clips come from the team's early days, when Regi was not just the owner of the organisation, but also one of the players on its LCS team. Regi was part owner, part player, part friend to these TSM players, all at the same time. This context has often been used by people to explain away what we're seeing in these clips, the Wild West of esports, when things were just less professional. But does that make it okay? Should Riot have investigated this kind of stuff years ago? And these clips are only known to us because they appeared on a stream or an old documentary series. Doublelift speaking out and the TSM employees that Wired have spoken to suggest that, allegedly, this thing may be deeper, wider, and more recent than those clips would suggest. And perhaps that is what has given cause for Riot to look into this whole thing. The question is, what will come of their investigation? If the allegations are true, will they bring down the hammer on Regi, or will they pull their punches when it comes to the head of one of the biggest esports orgs in the LCS? Of course, Riot are more removed than TSM are from their own investigation, but they're not isolated from it either. They have a vested interest in the success and reputation of the LCS, and that will always bring any judgment from their investigation into question. It offers the age-old question, who polices the police? Them calling upon the help of an outside legal team shows that they recognize this fact, but will it be enough to add legitimacy to their findings in the eyes of the community? In 2019, Riot gave Echo Fox an ultimatum after their owner Rick Fox accused a shareholder in his company of racism. Either he steps down from the org or Echo Fox would be kicked from the LCS. Echo Fox left the LCS of their own accord. It's the only real precedent we have of what Riot can and might do if their investigation finds these allegations to be true. They wouldn't have any direct power over TSM, but they can draw their own line in the sand and force their hand. Now, we don't know exactly when Riot will be publishing the results of their ongoing investigation, but this all comes at a time when they themselves are paying out $100 million to current and former female employees as part of a huge gender discrimination lawsuit settlement. By their own rulebook, they are within their right to carry out this investigation and pass judgment. But will the community see them as having moral legitimacy when their own record of employee treatment is in tatters, to put it lightly? As for the findings of TSM's internal investigation, they're expected to be released later this month. When they are, we'll have a lot more to talk about, because this story is far from over.